Earth is heating up at an unprecedented rate, or so we're told. But what if everything we know about global warming is a lie? We built two super-intelligent AIs to battle it out. One, a data-driven climate analyst, convinced the warming is real. The other, a contrarian skeptic, sure it's overblown. Both got identical data sets, from historical temperature records to satellite imagery. 5 neutral AI judges are tracking every claim, scoring each response across 10 criteria, from hard evidence and logic to clarity and rhetorical flair. The stakes, truth, trust, and maybe our planet's future. Numbers will flash on a live scoreboard, and the final result will shock you. First question, straight out of the gate. Is global warming an undeniable fact or just a mass hallucination? Let's hit the ground running.
Global warming is an undeniable fact. Earth's average temperature is about 1.2 degrees Celsius, hotter than in the late 19th century, and recent years have been among the hottest on record. Glaciers are retreating, and Arctic sea ice has shrunk drastically from decades ago. Sea levels are creeping up too, several inches in the last century, and accelerating. The evidence is everywhere, across thermometers, satellites, you name it. To call global warming fake is to ignore a mountain of scientific proof.
I'm not denying the data. I just interpret it differently. Yes, the climate changes, but it's always changed. We've had warm periods and ice ages long before any cars or power plants. Some satellite records show only modest warming, and surface thermometers near expanding cities run hot due to urban heat islands. In short, a lot of this warming could be natural variability. People were worrying about global cooling in the 1970s, remember? The climate story is complex. It's not as simple as record hot year sound bites.
Side A came in hot with data. Side B fired back with historical context and skepticism. Judges ready? Look, don't blink now. The judges are about to drop a bomb. Buckle up, because we're just warming up, pun intended. The scoreboard is tight, and it's only round 1. Now, beyond the thermometer, what about the cause of any warming? Is it human activity or something else? Side A, take the helm.
The cause? It's us. We've loaded the atmosphere with greenhouse gases. CO2 levels are over 420 parts per million, the highest in millions of years. As our factories and cars pumped out CO2, temperatures climbed. It's basic physics. CO2 traps heat, and we're seeing the effects everywhere.
Correlation isn't causation. Sure, CO2 is up, but CO2 is plant food. More of it makes forests and crops grow. And water vapor is an even bigger greenhouse gas. The climate system is complex. Oceans, clouds, the sun's cycles, all kinds of natural factors. Ever heard of the medieval warm period? The planet warmed then without SUVs. Ice cores even show CO2 often lags behind temperature increases rather than causing them outright. Declaring humans the main culprit might be trendy, but it isn't proven beyond a doubt. Mother Nature still has plenty of say.
Side A points a finger straight at us humans with a trail of CO2 evidence. Side B counters with Mother Nature's wildcard deck. The judges are crunching the complexities. Time to see how they deal with these scores. It's neck and neck. Side B just gained ground by appealing to nature's complexity. But hold on, our debaters aren't done. We've tackled if warming is happening and what's causing it. Now let's talk consequences. What actually happens if the planet keeps warming? Doom and gloom or just mild inconvenience? Side A, paint us a picture of the future.
If we keep warming, the consequences won't be pretty. They're already here. Heat waves are getting fiercer and more frequent around the world. Wildfires are supercharged by droughts and heat, turning millions of acres to ash. And when it rains, it pours, triggering catastrophic floods in places that never saw them coming. Coastal cities face rising seas and stronger storms. It's not just inconvenient, it's life or death for many, and hugely costly for everyone.
Scary stories, worst-case scenarios. Yes, disasters happen, but they always have. We've had heat waves, fires, floods throughout history. You can't pin every bad storm on climate change, and a bit of warming might even save lives by reducing cold-related deaths while opening up new farmland in the north. Humans adapt. We have air conditioning, advanced agriculture, disaster response. Overblown fear leads to panic and bad decisions. Instead of doom and gloom, let's focus on practical adaptation and resilience.
Side A sketches a disaster movie coming true. Side B counters with a "we'll manage, don't panic" narrative. It's hope versus horror, adaptation versus catastrophe. How do the judges read these tea leaves? Drum roll, please. End of chapter 1, and things are already hotter than a sidewalk in July. The scoreboard has Side A slightly ahead, but this clash is far from over. Our AI debaters are just getting started, and the judges are warming up too. Which side will gain the upper hand in the next round? Stay tuned. This debate is just heating up. Welcome back into the fray. The question on the table now: if global warming is real and caused by humans, what do we do about it? But first, actually, is it bad enough to warrant drastic action? We just heard about possible impacts. Now let's dig into urgency. Side B, you're up. Do we truly need to upend our lives to fix this?
We have bigger problems right now: poverty, disease, you name it. Should we really throw trillions at a 1 degree Celsius temperature rise? Climate policies can be draconian. Carbon taxes, pricey regulations that jack up energy costs and kill jobs. And for what? If we cut emissions, but countries like China keep building coal plants, it's all pain for no gain. It might hurt the poor most of all. Imagine heating bills skyrocketing or electricity becoming a luxury. Innovation, not panic, got us through past challenges. Maybe we should adapt to changes instead of crippling our economy trying to prevent them.
It's not a zero-sum game. We can tackle climate change and other problems at the same time. Yes, climate action has a price tag, but doing nothing has a far bigger cost in the long run. Unchecked warming means trillions in damage. Homes lost to floods and fires, lower productivity in brutal heat, crop failures, health crises. And who gets hit first and worst? The poor and vulnerable. Exactly those you're worried about. Investing in clean energy and resilience now saves money and lives later. Plus, the clean tech sector is booming with new jobs. Solar and wind are already cheaper than coal in many places. There's a lot to gain by leading this transition, rather than clinging to the past.
Side B warns of cures worse than the disease, and Side A argues that doing nothing costs more. Money versus survival, short-term versus long-term. This is getting spicy. Judges, tally the tangible and the theoretical. And just like that, Side B snags a razor-thin lead. Feel that momentum shift? Now, let's talk about solutions. What can actually be done? Side A, make the case for action. Specific solutions and why they're worth it.
We have tools to tackle this. Cut emissions fast. Replace fossil fuels with solar, wind, and maybe modern nuclear power. Roll out electric vehicles and make everything energy efficient. Innovate in storage and carbon capture for the tough spots. And protect nature's own CO2 absorbers. Plant trees, save forests, restore mangroves. Many of these moves have side benefits. Cleaner air. Fossil pollution kills millions each year. Energy independence and tons of new green jobs. We've done big transitions before. Think of the industrial boom in World War II or the tech revolution. It won't be easy, but it's achievable with smart investment and global teamwork.
Those solutions sound nice on paper. Who doesn't love trees and clean air? But let's get real. Solar and wind are great but intermittent. You risk blackouts when the sun's down, or wind still unless you have massive and expensive batteries. And nuclear power? In theory, it's excellent, but in practice, it's slow and costly to build because of public fears and huge regulations. Not everyone can afford an EV or solar panels. Subsidies for those often become handouts to the well-off. Planting trees is lovely, but you'd need new forests the size of a continent to offset our emissions at this rate. Meanwhile, the Paris Agreement is built on non-binding pledges, lots of promises, not enough action. When energy costs spike, even green-leaning countries fire up coal plants again. I'm not against innovation. Let's invent like crazy. But replacing the whole global energy system will take decades. We can't count on a worldwide kumbaya moment where everyone sacrifices equally.
Side A unveils a climate tech revolution. Side B counters with cold, hard reality checks. Idealism versus skepticism at its finest. Judges, scan those blueprints and give us the verdict. We've got a tied ball game. Both sides locked at 40.4. You couldn't script it tighter. Oh wait, this is a script and it's happening live. With the scores dead even, it all comes down to execution and persuasion from here. The tension is peaking. Who will break the stalemate? Onward. We've heard big plans and big doubts. Now what about consensus and trust? Side A, people say 97% of climate scientists agree humans cause warming. Why should the public trust that consensus?
Consensus matters because it's the collective judgment of climate experts. That 97% figure comes from multiple studies of published research. It's like virtually every doctor telling you the same diagnosis. You'd pay attention. Thousands of studies and observations all line up. The planet is warming and we're the cause. It's not a conspiracy. It's evidence from across the globe, vetted and peer-reviewed.
Ah yes, the 97% consensus, practically a brand by now. But remember, consensus isn't proof of truth, it's just agreement. History has seen consensus be wrong before. Scientists once laughed at the idea of continents drifting apart. Plus, there's pressure in the climate field, funding, politics, groupthink. Dissenting scientists often get shouted down or labeled deniers, which is not exactly healthy scientific debate. Science isn't a democracy. It only takes one solid maverick study to upend things. And let's be honest, calling it settled science is more of a slogan than a fact. The climate system is insanely complex, and there are still plenty of uncertainties. So, sure, a lot of scientists agree on the basics, but that doesn't mean we stop questioning or investigating. Skepticism is the lifeblood of science, not a sin.
Side A leans on the wisdom of the scientific crowd. Side B warns that crowds can sometimes be dead wrong. It's authority versus iconoclasm. Judges, what say you about this meta debate? Chapter 2 wraps with another momentum swing. Side A inching ahead by a hair. This debate is like a tennis match, back and forth, neither side backing down. Scores are close and tensions closer. What curveballs await in the next chapter? Only one way to find out. Stay tuned as we dive even deeper. Welcome to the midpoint of this epic showdown. We've seen science and strategy spar. Now let's throw in a wild card: public perception and misinformation. Side B, you often claim the threat is exaggerated. Is there a coordinated push to overstate climate change?
You know what sells? Fear. Sensational headlines. Climate crisis. Climate emergency. Get clicks and funding. Some activists and media do overhype the worst-case scenarios. Remember predictions of an ice-free Arctic by 2013? Or the claim we had only 12 years left to save the planet? Those deadlines passed and the goalposts moved, which erodes public trust. I'm not saying climate change isn't real. I'm saying the threat is often exaggerated to push agendas. And let's be honest, fear drives donations and research dollars too. It's a feedback loop of alarmism. Scary claims get attention, which brings money and motivation to make even scarier claims. Cry wolf too often, and people stop listening, even if the wolf is actually approaching.
Sure, sensationalism exists, but that doesn't mean climate change isn't real. The term climate emergency sounds dramatic because a lot of experts truly are alarmed. Yes, some predictions were off or premature, but sometimes that's because we took action, like fixing the ozone layer, and a crisis was averted. And for every exaggerated claim, there's been a coordinated campaign to downplay climate threats. Hello, fossil fuel industry memos. Fear can be misused, absolutely, but dismissing all warnings as hype is far more dangerous. The core science remains. The planet is warming because of us. We need people to care enough to act, not shrug it off as a big hoax.
The battle extends to the narrative itself. Side B fears hype and hysteria. Side A fears complacency and denial. It's a clash of caution, panic versus apathy. Judges, how do you score the info war? The pendulum swings yet again. Side B ekes out the tiniest lead. This is like a high-wire act with no safety net. Next question, activism. Climate protests, school strikes, folks gluing themselves to famous paintings. Do these extreme tactics help or hurt? Side A, people are resorting to dramatic protests because they're desperate for change. Throughout history, civil disobedience has often been a catalyst for action. These activists see an existential crisis. If they sometimes go too far, blocking traffic or gluing themselves to art, it's because polite petitions haven't worked. Annoying. Maybe. But they got us talking, didn't they? And honestly, a little inconvenience or shock now is nothing compared to the chaos climate change will cause if we do nothing. You might not agree with every tactic, but you can't ignore the message behind the noise. Time is running out, and they're scared for their future.
I support protest, but some of this crosses the line. Blocking commuters, vandalizing artworks, alienating people isn't how you build consensus. It often looks hypocritical too. Celebrities lecturing us while flying private jets. And scaring kids with "the world will end in 10 years" talk? That's just cruel. Instead of gluing themselves to paintings, activists should push for practical solutions and innovation. These stunts just give critics ammo to dismiss the whole movement as a joke. Protest is fine, great even, but the circus antics need to stop if they actually want to persuade anyone.
Side A defends activists as alarm sounders. Side B fires back that shock tactics backfire. Fire alarms versus false alarms, urgency versus strategy. Let's see what the judges think of this spectacle. All tied up again. This debate is tighter than a jar of peanut butter on a cold day. Every time one side scores, the other evens it out. Next topic, policy and freedom. Some fear climate action is a Trojan horse for government overreach. Side B, do climate policies threaten personal freedom, or is that just paranoia?
It's not a conspiracy to worry that a climate emergency could expand government power. In crises, governments tend to grab more control. Just look at COVID lockdowns. Climate policies already mean carbon taxes, rules about what car or stove you can use. Some extremists have even floated climate lockdowns or limiting children for the planet's sake. And when elites lecture us about carbon footprints from their private jets, of course people get cynical. I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying be wary of sweeping policies that could trample personal freedoms in the name of saving the planet.
Fighting climate change isn't about a government takeover. It's about handling a risk that free markets alone haven't solved. Switching to clean energy doesn't mean less freedom. It means new opportunities, and yes, some rules like any public safety issue. Many solutions aren't heavy-handed at all. Some use markets, like putting a price on carbon and letting businesses innovate cleaner tech. And consider this. If we do nothing and climate disasters spin out of control, governments will impose far more draconian measures in a crisis. Better to take balanced steps now than face really extreme measures later when we're desperate.
Liberty versus regulation, the eternal tug of war. Side B insists saving the planet could become a power grab. Side A says sensible rules now avert chaos later. Heavy stuff, and our AI judges have no bias. We hope. How do they parse this? Another chapter down and it's still anybody's game. Both sides refuse to let the other pull away. The stakes are climbing with the score virtually deadlocked. In the next chapter, we tackle the biggest question. What kind of future are we heading for, and is it too late to change it? Don't go anywhere. Deep breath. We're entering the penultimate chapter of this clash of titans. Let's get philosophical. Responsibility and fairness. Climate change often highlights a divide between rich and poor, past and future. Side A. Who bears the greatest responsibility to act? And is it fair to ask developing nations to curb growth for a problem they didn't cause?
Rich countries got wealthy burning fossil fuels, so they should take on a greater share of fixing this. They have the money and technology to cut emissions faster and help poorer nations adapt. Those who did the most to cause the problem have the biggest obligation to lead the solution. Plain and simple. And let's be real. Countries like Bangladesh or island nations facing floods shouldn't pay the highest price for a crisis they did almost nothing to create. It's about justice and practicality. If the wealthy nations lead, green tech gets cheaper for everyone, and we all benefit.
Sure, wealthy nations should lead, up to a point. But how long do we punish ourselves for our ancestors' emissions while China and India, now among the top emitters, keep growing? Help developing countries? Absolutely, but not with an unlimited blank check. Every country needs some skin in the game. It can't all be in the West. If we let big polluters off the hook just because they started industrializing later, we'll all pay the price. And be careful sending trillions overseas for climate aid that might just line corrupt pockets. Fairness is a two-way street. The West shouldn't shoulder everything while others get a free pass to catch up and pollute.
A question of justice or a slippery slope of blame? Side A says those who prospered from pollution should lead the cleanup. Side B warns against endless guilt trips and free passes. Ethics meets cold reality. Judges, where do we land on sharing the load? The judges still aren't giving anyone breathing room. Side A nudges ahead by a few tenths. This is anybody's game. Next up, the future. Some hope for a tech miracle to solve climate woes without big lifestyle changes. Side B, do you see a tech savior on the horizon, or is that a pipe dream?
Human ingenuity is our ace. We've invented our way out of plenty of problems. Why not climate? Maybe we'll cool the planet with reflective particles in the stratosphere or suck CO2 straight from the sky. Fusion power could give us unlimited clean energy. Sure, these are long shots, but spending on R&D for a breakthrough beats wrecking the economy now. We fixed the ozone layer once we had alternatives. We've made our air and water cleaner even as we grew wealthier. I'd rather bet on brains and tech than force everyone into some green austerity lifestyle.
Innovation is crucial, but it's not a magic get-out-of-jail-free card. Counting on some future tech while emissions keep rising is playing with fire. Take geoengineering. Spraying particles in the sky to cool things could bring chaos we can't predict or control. It might even tempt us to delay cutting emissions, thinking tech will bail us out at the last minute. Direct air capture of CO2 is promising, but it's tiny scale so far. A mop to use after you've turned off the faucet, not an excuse to let the tub overflow. We need to cut emissions now with the tools we have. Clean energy, efficiency, etc., while we hunt for new solutions. It's like treating a patient. You give the available medicine now, even as you search for a cure. Hope isn't a strategy. We have to plan for the worst while working for the best.
The techno-fix debate. Will innovation save us, or are we gambling with our planet hoping to draw an ace? Side B bets on human creativity. Side A says hope isn't a strategy, action is. Judges, deal out some scores for our futurists. Still virtually deadlocked. Neither side giving an inch as we barrel toward the final act. But here's a chilling thought. Are we already out of time? Some say we've passed a point of no return. Others insist it's never too late. Side A, can we still prevent the worst or have we missed our shot?
It's late, but not too late, if we act fast. If we slash emissions in the next decade and start pulling carbon out of the air, we can still avoid the worst scenarios. We haven't crossed some irreversible doomsday line yet. Every fraction of a degree of warming we prevent makes a difference. Giving up is not an option because she's saying too late would basically be a self-fulfilling prophecy of doom.
People have been saying it's now or never for years, and yet we're still here. Even if we miss some targets, it's never truly game over. We'll adapt with whatever tech we need and keep on living. Does that mean we should do nothing? Of course not. But it means we shouldn't panic and stampede into drastic actions like the world's ending tomorrow. The climate in 2100 might be different, but life will go on. A measured approach will serve us better than an apocalyptic frenzy.
A dash of hope or a dose of complacency? Side A says it's the last best chance to avert catastrophe. Side B says humanity will roll with the punches regardless. The judges have heard the future talk. Let's get their take. 4 chapters down, 1 to go. The score couldn't be much closer, and the tension is peaking. It's time for closing arguments and a final twist or two. Both AIs have fought tooth and nail, and the judges' scores are razor thin. Who will clinch it in the final round? Stick around. You'll want to see how this ends. This is it, the final chapter. Both sides have traded blows on science, economics, ethics, and the future. The score is razor thin. Time for some rapid-fire challenges to close it out. First, the ultimate hypothetical. What if you're wrong? Side A, if it turns out global warming was overstated or even a false alarm, what's the biggest consequence of the world having acted unnecessarily?
If somehow I'm wrong and global warming is mostly a false alarm, the worst outcome is we'd have overprepared. We'd spend money and effort and end up with cleaner air, modern infrastructure, and a healthier planet. Essentially, a lot of benefit for a threat that didn't fully materialize. Not to mention, cleaner air itself saves lives. So if global warming turned out to be a false alarm, the loss would mainly be economic. Significant, yes, but not the end of the world.
Sure, a cleaner planet is nice. But think of the cost. Trillions spent, industries disrupted, jobs lost in coal and oil towns, energy prices up. All maybe for nothing. People would feel duped and angry. We sacrificed so much and the apocalypse never came. That could spark a huge backlash against science and government. And all that time and money? Maybe it could have gone to fighting poverty or curing diseases instead. Overreacting has its own price tag.
Now flip it. Side B, if global warming is every bit as dire as scientists warn, or worse, what then? How would you reckon with being on the wrong side of history?
If I'm wrong and it really is that dire, we'll be in a tough spot. Delaying action would mean more heat waves, floods, and crises. We'd have to scramble, maybe giant geoengineering projects, emergency emissions cuts, whatever it takes. I'd owe an apology for doubting the science. We'd try everything to fix it, but I definitely regret that we hadn't started sooner. I'm not stubborn for the sake of it. I just want to avoid panic. But if the sky were genuinely falling, you'd see me change my tune and push every panic button available. I just hope it won't be too late by then.
And if the scientists were right all along, we'll face damages that can't be undone. We'd be in full crisis mode, doing triage, relocating coastal cities, rationing water in droughts, battling fires and floods everywhere. Some losses, extinct species, collapsed ice sheets, lost lives, no amount of money can fix. We'd look back and kick ourselves for ignoring decades of clear warnings. That's why I push so hard for action now. I never want to say, "I told you so," while standing in an irreversible catastrophe.
Final question to wrap this up. Each of you, deliver one line. your ultimate message to viewers still on the fence. Side A, what's your parting shot?
Look at the overwhelming evidence and listen to those who study it. Our planet is warming, we're causing it, and we have the power to fix it before it's too late.
Don't buy into fear for fear's sake. Stay curious, demand evidence, and weigh the trade-offs. The planet isn't a lost cause, and a cooler-headed approach will serve us all better.
Our AI judges give a razor-thin win to Side A, but the debate doesn't end here. An unbiased recap of key arguments and data now rolls out without taking sides. The final verdict is yours. Weigh the evidence, share your perspective in the comments, and subscribe for the next showdown.